welcome back to Most Amazing Top 10. I'm your host, Taylor McWaters. You're you, and let's dive in. Here are the top 10 evil scientists who experimented with human crossbreeding. Starting off our list at number 10, new bees. Great. Sick of the old ones that sting you in the neck and then you're allergic? We got some new bees now to worry about. Here we go. A lot of us know bees are pretty harmless and kind of cute, hairy little pollinators. Unless, of course, like I mentioned, you're allergic or terrified of them. But truthfully, bees normally do a lot more good than harm. Obviously, right? Save the bees. That was, of course, until an experiment in the 70s went south. Yeah, this experiment resulted in a new bee, just a dangerous bee. The idea was to take a regular honey bee and breed it with a bee that is found in Africa that produces more honey. And of course the goal was to produce a manageable bee that would also be able to provide more honey than a regular honey bee. Good stuff, right? On paper this sounds like a step in the right direction. Well, the bees that came out were a lot less manageable and they didn't even make more honey. Yeah, liars. You're fired, all 1,000 of you. Get out of here. After this experiment ended, however, the bees got out into the environment, and in the 80s we saw the beginning of a massive trouble. These bees are not only aggressive towards other kind of bees, which creates a huge problem, but they're also very aggressive towards human beings. Nice. And when these guys sting, their stinger stays with them, so they can continue to Julius Caesar you how many times they want. Victims of these swarms receive 10 times the amount of stings as regular swarms, so horrible news. And they react to disturbances 10 times faster, and they will also chase said disturbance a quarter of a mile. So hope you can run really fast and really far. Number 9, Wholphin. These guys were created when a female common bottlenose dolphin was bred with a male false killer whale. Now, we shouldn't be doing this. They're extremely rare and they have been found in the wild, but unfortunately most of the ones that have existed were bred in captivity, because humans are the worst. The first recorded Wholphin was born in the Tokyo SeaWorld in 1981, and he very sadly died just 200 days later. Didn't even make it 1 year. Horrible. Probably a prime example of why they maybe shouldn't exist in the first place. I don't know, just a wild observation. The first that was born in the United States that actually somehow survived was at Sea Life Park in Hawaii in May 1985, and her name was Kekamalu. She ended up having 3 babies. The first passed away after a few days, the second passed away at the age of 9, but thankfully the third one is still alive. In March last year, both Kekamalu and her daughter were still alive, but they remain, of course, in captivity, so it's like, great. But really not at the same time. Number 8, farm cattle. Back in the 90s, farmers in India were told that if they crossbred their cattle, they'd be able to breed cattle that could produce more milk, which in turn would mean more money for them and their families. Awesome, this should be amazing and great news, right? Well, considering why we're here watching, I don't think it's gonna end the way we think, no. Different breeds of bulls were brought in and farmers were expecting great results, but they ended up being stuck with cattle that did produce more milk, great, but they also needed way more food. They needed high quality food as well, or else they'd stop producing more milk and they were less resistant to the local diseases, so they required more veterinary visits. So it cost them more money, you know what I mean? Yeah, we got more milk, but we have to spend more money on maintaining the damn thing. It's not a win. It's not a win in my book. Number 7, old Buffalo Jones. Here we go. A guy named Charles Buffalo Jones. Let's talk about him. This man started breeding animals in 1906 because the bison population in Arizona at the time was exceptionally low. So bison were bred with domestic cattle in order to produce a hardy commercial animal. Nice. Old Buffalo Jones getting his science on. He ended up just giving up on this and released the animals, who were then managed by the state, and the numbers remained relatively low because of limited hunting licenses. Well, when the beefalo, good name, found their way into a national park where hunting is banned and therefore aren't any, natural predators, the population began to grow by 50% a year. That's a lot of beefalo. So none of this is necessarily bad, but it's the animal's environmental impact that has the real trouble. First off, they're very thirsty animals and they can consume 10 gallons each per trip to a watering hole. So they're sucking it all up, you know what I mean? It's like when you're in school and you're waiting for water and the guy in front of you just keeps drinking. You're like, oh my God, what are you doing? Where is this going? Not to mention the fact that they do their dirty business in the water and that basically just ruins it all. Basically, they've thrown the entire ecosystem off balance and have pushed out other animals, and insects and plant life around have also been infected, all because they're thirsty and they like to take big shits where we all drink our water. Thanks, beefalo. Number 6, hybrid lion. Back in the 1980s at the Chatbir Zoo in Chandigarh, India, they started an experimental program where they would breed together a domestic lion, which is a bit smaller, has a less shaggy mane. They would breed that with an African lion in the hopes that they could be introduced to the wild and help with the dwindling population of wild lions in India. Again, sounds like a great plan at first. How do we make it happen without making weird animals? The zoo found 2 African lions that were being used in a circus and then brought them in to breed with their other 2 Asiatic lions. Nice. Hey, we'll save ya. Just kidding, even worse. When the cubs were born, it was clear this was already a mistake, as the cubs all had severely weak back legs. They were all shaky. They were having extreme trouble walking, and as they got older, their immune system started to fail more and more. Sadly, by 2000, they had bred more than 70 of these hybrid lions, and they finally decided to stop the program, and all the males were given vasectomies in order to stop any reproduction further. There's also laws that prohibited them from killing animals, so they were simply just waiting around for them to die naturally. It's kind of a weird circle we got into. When there's a dwindling population of lions, it's insane to me that they just wasted 20 years trying to do this when they could have just simply bred the lions that they had. You know what I mean? It was right there, and they're like, all right, now let's try something new. It's like, what? No, why? Number 5, Kunga. Perhaps the earliest example of human-animal hybrid testing. Here we go, halfway through, time to turn it up a bit. Scientists recently learned about this donkey hybrid that roamed ancient Mesopotamia. Now this was a time before even horses arrived, so they had to do something, right? Large Kungas would pull wagons and smaller ones would help pulling plows. These little guys, they were the talk of the town. Imagine hybrid animals before horses. No wonder they were a status symbol. 4,000 years ago, they were given as gifts for weddings. Yeah, yummy. I wonder what this one is. Smells a little stinky. After so long, scientists are finally able to figure out what exactly a Kunga was a hybrid of. It was a female donkey and a male Syrian wild ass. Yeah, just a wild ass over there. Hey, nice wild ass. It's wild what you can still learn from ancient animal bones from even thousands of years ago. It's mind-blowing. More amazing how involved this hybrid was in Mesopotamian culture. Do we bring back the Kunga? I don't know. Number 4, super cow. Moo, but with a lot of O's. Just tons of a moo, just a mighty moo. Introducing the super cow. All right, start your day off with some super milk, and then have a super stomach ache, and shit your super pants. Only in Belgium, let's do it. Back in the 1800s, scientists and farmers brought together native cattle and short-horn cattle. After that, they would literally pick the biggest of the bunch and then have them breed together. These cows are officially called Belgian Blues, but I will continue to call them super cows. Thank you very much. I can't even look at these guys. They're disturbing. They look like bodybuilders. That makes no sense. They have like 8 biceps. The Incredible Hulk, just with more milk. Number 3, the mouse with an ear on its back. Oh, I want to Q-tip this guy every time I see him. The mouse with a human ear, folks. How did this happen? This is like the world's greatest mouse spy. Stuart Little's evil brother. Let's do it. Back in 1997, this Vacanti mouse became the test subject to determine if scientists could grow cartilage using chondrocytes, aka cells from a cow. And clearly it worked. A little too well. It's a little odd what we have. We're still talking about it, obviously. It's weird. It all started when Joseph Vacanti, a pediatric surgeon, began designing human organs. This was during a shortage in time. He wasn't just bored and started to make ears. He was changing the medical game. And little did he know, he was about to change the science game as well. He constructed an ear, and he told his brother Chuck and his partner Bob to not bring up the fact that he attached said ear to a live mouse. Kind of hard to bring up, but we'll do our best. Okay. Chuck failed. He spilled the beans almost right away. But now we know that cow cartilage can create human cells. That's great. I want to Q-tip his back. Is that weird? That's not weird. Gives ear cheese a whole new meaning. I'm gonna throw out. Number 2, the Zorse. I'll give you a second to figure out what animal this is. Nice, there you go. Male zebra, female horse. Now we've got a really fun word. Zebroids are also quite common historically. Charles Darwin even noted some in his work. So since the 19th century, crossbreeding zebras with horses and donkeys, it's all been done. More often than not, and this is what makes them stand out, zebroids will experience dwarfism. It's pretty cute. In 2010, a zedonk was born, a zebra donkey. All these fun names, right? But again, back in the 70s, 3 were born in Colchester Zoo. These zookeepers were like, how do we make zoos new and hip and bizarre? Oh, I know. Humans are not great. Humans are too bored, it seems. And finally, number 1, Hiromitsu Nakauchi, stem cell biologist from Tokyo. This last one is too wild. Just recently, his experiments have been approved by the government, so things are actively in play here. Not old Farmer Joe in the early 1900s. No, we're getting to modern science now. Hiromitsu hopes to grow human cells inside mice and rats, right? Like we just talked about. But then he wants to transplant those embryos into surrogate animals. A lot of animals, a lot of cells, a lot of traffic going in and out. Cells into rats and mice embryos, how do we even get here? We went from Salem witch trials to rodents being genetically manipulated so they can make pancreases for you. What? But his hope here was that the rodents' bodies will be used for human cells to then make a pancreas for themselves. So it's kind of like a kickoff into biology, right? Here's the thing, while conducting said experiments, they found out that rats were starting to develop a human-type brain. Yeah, that's when they decided to pull the plug, rightfully so. The second humans and animals get too close, governments come in and they go, hey, stop. Thanks. Those are the top 10 evil scientists who experimented with human crossbreeding. If you want a part 2, yeah, I'll look at some f***ed up animals any day. I'm your host, Taylor McWaters. See you next time. A most amazing top 10.